We know the 5 guys who are going to be in the back end of Atlanta's pen, but after Raisel Iglesias, we don't really know who is going to do what. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today for Wednesday, February 12th, your source of news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby. You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Crosby Baseball. You can follow the show on Twitter, Braves_today. We have a Facebook page and an Instagram as well. And you can find all my written work, bravestoday.com. That's the Braves Today Substack, as this is both a podcast and a newsletter. And today, the clubhouse down in Northport opens to media for the first time. This morning, we will probably not be talking about it until Friday. Special guest coming on, member of the Braves Beat, who will be coming to us from Northport to talk about the vibes in the clubhouse, what's going on the ground there at spring training, now that pitchers and catchers have reported. But continuing our pitching preview, we talked about the top of the rotation. We talked about the back of the rotation. Now I want to talk about the bullpen. And today is going to be the back end of the bullpen, right? Your 7th, your 8th, your 9th inning stuff. And we know all of these names. And there's some different levels of confidence. You do have confidence in a lot of these names. But figuring out the roles is going to be the hard part here. The thing that we do know, the slam dunk absolutely done, is Raisel Iglesias is going to be is set up to have another dominant year as Atlanta's closer. Last year, 6-2 with a 1.95 ERA, picks up 34 saves, pitches 69 1/3 innings across 66 games. If you remember, he did a couple like 9th and 10ths last year, or 8ths and 9ths. 8.8 strikeouts per 9. 1.7 walks per 9. Really interesting. The strikeouts dropped. He was always 11 strikeouts per 9, 10.3, 12.1, stuff like that. Dropped to 8.8 last year. But the walks, 1.7, ties for the lowest mark of his career on just straight walks. 5% walk rate. Second year of his career, he's had a walk rate as low as 5%. Strikeout rate, 26% is still good, but it's not in the realm of where he was. His career number is 29.5, so that was below average on strikeouts. Had 34 saves, finished with 2.9 WAR. And if you take the Atlanta Braves roster last year, because of the injuries, because of how many guys cycled in and out and struggled and things like that, there were only 6 guys with more WAR than Raisel Iglesias last year. Chris Sale led the team at 6.2, Renato Lopez at 5.1, Marcell Ozuna at 4.3, despite playing no defense whatsoever and not really giving you anything on the base paths either. Matt Olson at 3.8, Max Fried at 3.5, Michael Harris at 3.2. So Raisel was a big part of the roster last year, and that's going to continue this year. $16 million salary. It's his age 35 year. There is an open question about whether or not Atlanta re-signs him. But I do find it interesting that because his ERA overperformed a lot of the ERA estimators, right? Whether it's field and independent pitching, whether it's expected ERA, things like that. That combined with the age and the drop-off in the strikeout numbers means that the projection systems, and again, we're using depth charts on Fangraphs here, actually have him being not only worse next year, but like more than a run worse. They have him with a 3.14 ERA. Reminder, last year he had a 1.95. They have him at a 3.14 ERA in 68 innings, 10.1 strikeouts per 9, so getting the strikeouts back to where they've always been, walks up to 2.25 per 9, and 1.2 WAR. So just really interesting how the projection systems are not buying a 35-year-old Raisel Iglesias. And I get it, right? Because one, again, he did outperform The estimators last year, 2.65 was his FIP, 2.24 was his expected ERA. To me, doesn't necessarily mean 3.14 ERA on the projection for this year, but I think part of it is a lot of the projection systems now. I know the new one on Fangraphs, I think it's called like Oopsie. Like a lot of the estimators now include Stuff Plus for pitchers, the quality of your pitches. And one of the inherent weaknesses in a Stuff Plus model, which sets everything to 100. If your pitch is a 100, it's exactly even. It's exactly average compared to MLB. Everything in a Stuff Plus model is based off of your primary pitch. And for most guys, that's their four-seam fastball, right? But Stuff Plus models inherently don't properly evaluate, value, appreciate, however you want to word it, a changeup. And last year, and in his career, Raisel Iglesias' primary pitch is his changeup. Threw it 31% of the time last year. It's not a normal changeup. It's like 89.5 miles an hour, whereas four-seamer's like 95, 96. He's not getting 10-mile-an-hour difference. There's not a ton of drop on it. It does have some horizontal movement, but it's really a timing thing. It messes up a hitter's timing going from a fastball to a changeup. The four-seamer was 28% usage. Slider was 21% usage, like 84 miles an hour or so. And then he had a 95, 96 mile an hour sinker as well that was like 20% usage. Throwing two separate fastballs, but not having a primary fastball because your main pitch is the changeup means that Stuff Plus models inherently aren't going to properly value Raisel Iglesias. I don't see anything in the performance last year, in the under the hood numbers, the StatCast stuff, anything like that makes me worry that he's going to go from a 195 to probably, honestly, that would be the third. If he had a 3.14 next year, that would be the third worst season of his career, right? Age 25 in Cincinnati, he had an ERA of 4.15. 2019 in Cincinnati, he had a 4.16, and then it would be this. That's it. Third worst season of his career. There's nothing that makes me see and look at him and say, yeah, that dude's destined to regress by over a run on ERA. Maybe he ends up, in 23, he had a 2.75, right? Maybe he ends up backing up a little bit to a 2 and change, lower 2s or something. Again, the estimators last year, expected ERA, 2.24. But I don't see Raisel Iglesias backing up to a 3 and change. Just doesn't make sense to me. But on the note of Iglesias, I do wonder about, with the Joe Jimenez injury, with the AJ Minter departure in free agency, and having not brought in any sort of former closers into your bullpen, who is your backup closer next year? Because the last couple years, the way this has worked, 2024 was Joe Jimenez. He had your second most saves in the bullpen. He had 3. 2023, AJ Minter had started the year off as the closer while Iglesias was on the injured list. And then later in the year, when he was back from Tommy John, Kirby Yates was your backup closer. And Minter had 10 saves. Yates had a handful of saves. And when Iglesias couldn't go, early in the year it was Minter, later in the year it was Yates. In 2022 is when you had Kenley Jansen. Both AJ Minter and deposed closer Will Smith had 5 saves apiece. Who is that backup closer this year? Who is the guy as of right now that you're going to call on in the 9th? If Raisel Iglesias has pitched in each of the last 2 days, let's say he went 2 1/3 innings, he faced 8, 9 batters, you cannot run him out there a third straight day. Who is the guy they're going to call on to be that? Is it somebody on the roster now? Is a free agent signing? I don't know. It could be one of the guys we're going to talk about in the rest of this show. I broke it up. We're going to talk about the 2 back-end righties in the next segment. Then we'll get to the 2 back-end lefties. Maybe it's one of these guys. Let me know who you think on the roster should get a save opportunity if Raisel Iglesias is unavailable? Or would you rather them use him on a third straight day if they have to make sure they've got somebody in there? Let me know. I want to hear from you. In just a second, let's get to those righties. Pierce Johnson, Daysbel Hernández, pros and cons, what to expect out of these guys, and the likelihood that they'll get put into the Joe Jimenez or AJ Minter role. We'll break that down next, right here on Braves Today. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsay Crosby talking about the back end of the bullpen as pitchers and catchers have now reported in Northport for spring training. And when you look at who could conceivably replace Raisel Iglesias were he unable to go in a single game, Pierce Johnson is your incumbent back-end guy, right? Last year, 3.67 ERA, 56 and a third innings. He pitched in 58 games, 10.7 strikeouts per nine, 4 walks per nine, put up 0.7 WAR. His projection for 2025, again off of Fangraphs, off their depth chart, 5-4 with a 3.60 ERA, 07 of a run different from what he put up last year. 64 innings, a little bit higher workload, which makes sense. Jimenez out for most of the year, Minter's gone. Makes sense they'll use him a little bit more. 10.96 strikeouts per nine, ticks up a little bit. 3.77 walks per nine, ticks down a little bit. Exactly 0.7 WAR still. This is, if you've watched a Braves game, Pierce Johnson's just spamming curveballs all day, right? It is a little bit of a unique curveball. When you look at the average curveball versus Pierce Johnson's curveball, it has less drop and it has more two-plane break than your average curveball. It's not a death ball. It's not a 12-6 ball. It's got a little bit of horizontal movement off axis on it, and it doesn't drop as much. But despite that, he throws it a lot. 72% of the time last year. It's coming in mid-80s. It is the primary pitch you have to watch out for. Now, if you're just sitting on that, tendency breaker here. He's got a fastball. Good velo. It comes in, averaged 95.5 miles an hour last year. 24% of the time. The last little bit of that, he's bridging some of the gap. There's a cutter. 92 miles an hour. He still has issues with walks, all right? 10.6% was 18th percentile last year. So that makes me a little bit nervous about using him in the 8th. But a lot of the other stuff, he gets a lot of ground balls because you end up swinging over that curveball. 68th percentile, 45.8% last year. The thing that is worrisome about making Pierce Johnson your 8th inning guy is because that curveball, if he leaves it up in the zone a little bit too much, or if you're ready for it, you can crush it. Hard hit rate of 39.4%. That was below average last year. Barrel rate of 8.5%, which is 32nd percentile in baseball. Well below average last year. So because of that, Atlanta most commonly used him in the 7th and in the 6th. He got 30 games in the 7th last year, 14 games in the 6th, and 12 games in the 8th. I did not have a chance to check and see how many of those were save situations and holds and all of that. Didn't have a chance to do that. But the point is, his usage was mostly 7th and 6th, right? So I still, because of the walks and because of, I wrote about this, I want to say when we did the New Year's resolutions for the pitching staff. And we talked about Pierce Johnson, the consistency. He clusters a lot of his runs, right? 23 earned runs last year, 15 of them came in 6 outings. And the goal should be, if he can mix in the four-seamer and cutter both a little bit more, so that guys can't sit on that curveball and get one finally and punish it, he can turn some of those 3-run outings into 2-run outings, and 2-run outings into 1-run outings. So I'd want to see that change before I say, yeah, put Pierce Johnson in the 8th. I do think he's a great bullpen weapon. He very much fits Atlanta's philosophy of go get a dude and have him throw his outlier pitch a lot more than everybody else does. I just don't know if he's the 8th inning guy yet. Somebody, when he got called up that they did use in the 8th inning last year, and this was mostly late in the year when Minter was already out and Jimenez was shaky, was Daysbel Hernández. Walk challenged Velo Daddy. So me and my friends like to joke around with these guys. Sliders underrated. Let's get to that. Okay. 3-0 with a 2.50 ERA last year. Got in 16 games for the Braves. Second year, he's gotten some games, not a ton, right? 13 strikeouts per 9, 5 walks per 9, was worth 0.4 WAR in 18 innings. By contrast, Pierce Johnson had 56 innings, and he was worth 0.7, right? So the pace for Daysbel, if he had the same usage, he'd have been at like 1 WAR on the year, right? Projection for this year, 4-3, 377 and 58 innings. Strikeout rate coming down to 10.6, walk rate coming down to 4.3, but putting up less WAR. I'm buying the over on Daysbel Hernández because a couple things going for him. One, the fastball velocity is very good. Averaged 97.4 last year in the majors, and I believe when I looked at the Gwinnett StatCast, it was close to that, if not a little bit right around there, right? But his fastball is not his primary pitch. His slider's his primary pitch. Everybody hears Daysbel Hernández and they just think velo fastball. He threw 41% fastballs last year and 54% sliders. Now, it's 89 miles an hour. It's a hard slider. It's not moving a ton, right? Like, you look at this slider, total movement on this slider, it's got some drop. It's actually a little bit below average on horizontal break, but it's got a little bit more than average on vertical drop, right? But that's first, fastball second, 5% usage of a sinker, 98.2 miles an hour. Now, also has some control issues, Pierce Johnson, 13.5%, right? Doesn't get a ton of ground balls, 37.8% I think it was, which is well below average. But so much of his other stuff was amongst the best in the league. Chase rate, 32.6. Whiff rate, 34.8. Strikeout rate, 35%. A lot of this, he didn't have enough innings to qualify on StatCast, but those bars are close to pegged at the end on every single category here. Barrel rate, 2.7%. I think it was second best on the team. Obviously, not enough innings to qualify, but second best on the team. Hard hit rate, 27%. Very good. And the usage, after he came up, 7 of his outings were the 8th inning of games. 5 of his outings were in the 7th. 3 of his outings were in the 6th. They were comfortable putting him into the back end of games. And again, I have not had a chance to pull all of these to see how many of these were high leverage situations and how many were not. But based on the comments that AA's made and Snit has made over the offseason, last year when they called Daysbel up, all of that stuff, I fully believe that Daysbel Hernández is going to have a shot to win the 8th inning job. Yes, the walks are too high. Absolutely, the walks are too high. But the velocity, the stuff is there. I absolutely believe that Daysbel Hernández, if he takes a leap, which these guys can do that. He is 28. He is still rather young in Major League experience, though. If he takes a leap, then that's going to go a long way towards solidifying the back end of the pen. And part of the reason Atlanta may not have already made a free agent signing for the back end of the pen as of time of recording is because they have faith that a guy like Daysbel Hernández is going to take a leap in 2025. Similar to how I'm of the belief they think Grant Holmes is going to take a leap in 2025, and that's why they didn't go out and acquire a starter. Same idea. Where, what does that say about Jared Kelenic, where they went and they acquired a left fielder in Jurickson Profar? Do they not think he's going to make a leap? But Daysbel Hernández, it feels like you're going to see him a lot in spring. They're going to find situations to put him into to test him. And obviously, if he's not working out, one, you've got 2 lefties. We're about to talk about these guys. You've got 1,000,000 guys in camp. That's tomorrow's show. 1,000,000 relief options, NRIs, whatever, in camp to talk about. But Daysbel Hernández has the stuff to compete to fill the Joe Jimenez and or AJ Minter role next season. In just a second, let's talk about those lefties, though. Aaron Bummer, Dylan Lee. Lot to like about both these guys. They are completely different. We'll break that down next, right here on Braves Today. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Underdog Fantasy. What a great... Football is now done, baseball is starting, and this is where we shine, folks. Go to the link in the episode description, promo code BRAVES. New customers get a free play and up to $1,000 in bonus cash with your first deposit. All we have to do is go in there, look at the statistical projections of players for the upcoming games. Maybe you're an NBA person. NBA, great. The Hawks, Trae Young's doing it. Just got named to the All-Star team. I saw that in passing. Maybe it's basketball. Maybe it's baseball. Whatever. You choose your players for your lineup. You choose higher or lower on their statistical projections. Depending on how many guys you pick and what's more likely to happen, higher or lower, you can win up to 1,000 times your money. You can play just about anywhere in Braves country outside of Mississippi. Hate it for you guys. Again, really easy. Links in the episode description. Promo code BRAVES. They gave us the promo code of BRAVES. Again, Underdog Fantasy. And you sign up, promo code BRAVES, you get a free play and up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Final segment of Braves Today here on Wednesday, February 12th, talking about the back end of the bullpen. And we're getting to the lefties. And this is really interesting, okay? Because Aaron Bummer's a guy that I've had a crusade for a while on why are you not pitching more in high leverage situations. He looked good last year and looked even better when you factor in the ERA estimators, okay? So, 4-3, 3.58 ERA in 55 innings, 11.2 strikeouts per 9, 2.9 walks per 9, okay? So, 3.58 ERA. But, fielding independent pitching, 2.23. Done a little bit wrong by Atlanta's defense. Expected ERA of 2.80. And a lot of these inputs for Aaron Bummer are elite. Like some of the best. One of them is the best in baseball, okay? Ground ball rate, 98th percentile, 61.3%. If you need a dude to get you a ground ball, you put Aaron Bummer in the game. That's what you do. Hard hit rate, 90th percentile, 32.9%. It's because of his stuff. We've talked about this before. It's a very East-West kind of game. 42% sweeper, 40% sinker, right? Has a four-seam fastball, good velocity, throws at about 94. Has a cutter, 5% usage, mixes it in. Against righties, he also has a curveball and a change he could mix in there. Together, 3% usage last year. Doesn't use them a ton. But sweeper, sinker, four-seamer, cutter, together are like 97% of his usage. And because they're good at minimizing contact, they're good at drawing ground balls, his barrel rate last year of 1.3% was 100th percentile in baseball. I went and pulled them up. One of them happened in August. One of them happened in September. Again, 2 barrels in 55 and a third innings. Sam Hilliard of the Rockies, old friend Sam Hilliard, got him for a double. I think that was in Colorado, actually. And then Kyle Schwarber ripped a ball to center field at 111 off the bat that was caught by Michael Harris for an out. So 2 barrels, a total of 2 bases on those 2 barrels for Aaron Bummer last year. We most commonly used him in the 7th inning, 23 games in the 7th, 18 games in the 6th, 14 games in the 8th, 11 games in the 9th. I did check a lot of those non-save situations. Aaron Bummer was not picking up saves last year. He doesn't feel like the profile of a guy that you want in a save situation in the 9th. He hasn't gotten a save since 2022, but he's absolutely, to me, Aaron Bummer's that fireman. You got guys on first and second with 1 out, and you're up by a run. Give me Aaron Bummer. Get me a double play ball. Let's get out of here. You got a runner on third and runners on the corners. 1 out. Double play ball. Get me out of here, Aaron Bummer. That's your job. And there were a couple situations last year where he came in, he got the ground ball, and it wasn't converted. But that is what Aaron Bummer's here to do. Dylan Lee, I'm going to confess something real quick. Dylan Lee is the most confusing pitcher that I have ever looked at critically, right? Because Dylan Lee, okay, 2.11 ERA last year, 11.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. He had 76 strikeouts in 59 and 2/3 innings. There is a lot of red on this StatCast, except for ground ball rate, 14th percentile of 36%, and fastball velo, because he's throwing 92. Okay. Dylan Lee, his main pitch is a slider. Outside of normal movement, doesn't have as much drop as a normal slider does, but 84-mile-an-hour slider, 92-mile-an-hour four-seamer, and an 85-mile-an-hour change is the entirety of his arsenal. Despite that, 94th percentile in hard hit rate, 99th percentile in chase, 98th percentile in whiff. I don't know how he's doing it. I legitimately do not understand how Dylan Lee is so freaking good. And I don't understand why we don't use him more in high leverage situations. I did pull that last year. When you sort all Braves relief pitching by high leverage opportunities, if you sort by number of at-bats, he's 10th in at-bats. If you sort by number of games, he's 8th by games for relievers and getting high leverage opportunities. But an Austin Kane Reach of Battery Power wrote an article back, I think like December or so, that since Fangraphs introduced plate discipline metrics in 2002, Dylan Lee is literally the greatest pitcher on record at getting hitters to chase pitches out of the zone. First in O-swing percentage, which is how much guys are chasing, and he's tied for second in swinging strikes. An exact quote from his article: for the percentage of pitches thrown that result in whiffs, he's just behind Josh Hader and sitting side by side with Eric Gagne and Edwin Diaz. I don't know how he's doing it, but he's doing it. And you need to use him like that. Okay, I'm not saying Dylan Lee has to be the 8th inning guy. Okay, we most commonly used him in the 7th as well, 20 games in the 7th. We rotated that 7th spot around a lot, as you can tell. 6th inning, 17 games, 8th inning, 12 games. Dylan Lee in the past has gotten some high leverage opportunities. I feel like this is the year you have a very affordable Dylan Lee. You have an obvious need in the back end of your bullpen with no AJ Minter and no Joe Jimenez for most of the year. If you're not going to sign a free agent, if you're not going to sign a David Robertson or one of those guys we talked about last week, use Dylan Lee in high leverage opportunities. The idea, I know, the idea is scary. The dude throws 92. Yeah, sure, throw him in the 8th inning against your Bryce Harpers and your Kyle Schwarbers. But you know what? It works. You don't have to understand how it works to acknowledge that it works, and we need to use that more. There's no reason that 9 other relief pitchers last year should have had more high leverage at-bats than Dylan Lee, when he is literally the greatest pitcher on record at getting hitters to chase out of the zone, and was one of the absolute best pitchers in baseball last year at not only that chase, but at whiffs, but at strikeouts, not allowing hard hit balls. It just, sometimes you don't have to overthink things. This is one of those things, like, I've thrown my hands up. I'm like, I don't get it. I don't know. It's probably some sort of deception thing that we can't really quantify yet until we get the 3D modeling, machine learning kind of things and cameras from the batter's perspective. But you know what? It obviously works. Let's do more of that. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about the guys The other end of the bullpen, your low leverage guys. Who gets these final couple spots in the pen? A lot of options there. In the meantime, you're listening on audio. Do us a favor, leave us a 5-star review. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when we drop that next episode. Maybe also leave us a 5-star review. I really do appreciate those. Matter of fact, if you leave a positive 5-star review, especially if there's a question or something in it, I'll read it on the show. That'll be fun for us. Until next time, this has been Braves Today.